Good afternoon or evening, everybody. Welcome back to another tropical forecast here by Agent with the forecast. So we have more updates here on Tropical Storm Nicholas. It is still a 40-mile tropical storm as it is going directly through the Houston and Galveston area as we speak right now. Nicholas did reach Category 1 status like I predicted on Sunday night. I did say it could get to 75 miles an hour. And it became a hurricane just before landfall. And we actually did see some pretty intense storms here as well, watching out for the intense threat for some widespread and far inland and even urban flash flooding, specifically across eastern Texas, Louisiana, and to portions of southern Mississippi. So there you see the actual low pressure itself. You can kind of see really scattered cumulus and cirrus clouds kind of rotating across this overall low pressure. It kind of looks like extratropical, or it looks kind of like a South Atlantic tropical storm based on its look here, as it's basically riding basically the coast of Texas right now. It's obviously moving very, very slowly, which is why we're watching out for such a widespread and significant flooding threat across Louisiana and eastern Texas, not only today, but as well overnight to tomorrow morning. You can kind of see there is a good amount of dry air basically to the northwest of this system based on the really weird cloud cover pattern there, all those little spots and little waves like that. And that's how you can tell there is some significant dry air kind of really preventing really much anything going on to the west of the actual low pressure, with the most of moisture and overall initiation and threats staying to the northeast and the east of the low pressure, which is why Corpus Christi, Brownsville, and that general vicinity got the least amount of really threats, at least flooding wise or rain wise. Obviously, they got the extreme storm surge, but now we're watching out for some significant overall as well flooding across Louisiana. You see really, really intense cloud cover there. You see that divergent flow of the cirrus clouds, really strong inflow. There's really no outflow channels on the storm anymore. And honestly, it's moving pretty slow far inland, so it's going to bring in a really ton of rain. However, it's going to allow it to weaken dramatically at a very fast rate, so likely to become a post-tropical depression rather soon as it goes deeper into Louisiana and Mississippi, but likely to stay tropical for the next maybe few advisories additionally. So let's now go ahead and get a look here at the key message from the National Hurricane Center on the latest advisory on Nicholas. So watching out for some heavy rainfall. Heavy rainfall will impact areas from the upper coast of Texas across Louisiana, southern Mississippi, and far southern Alabama into western Florida Panhandle. So watching out for some widespread flooding here, as we're seeing very, really widespread eastern bandings and as well outer bands bringing in some really intense showers that are bringing in some overall strong downpours. We really watch out from flooding all the way anywhere east of the actual low pressure itself. As you can tell, they don't really mention anywhere really west of the low pressure, like Austin or like Texarkana or like Tyler. They're really just mentioning areas east of the low pressure, as far east as even Pensacola. So watching out by significant rainfall amounts are expected, potentially resulting in areas of life-threatening flash and urban flooding across these areas. Minor to isolated major river flooding is also possible in the small river basin and urban areas. So watching out for the lower Mississippi River basin there. Obviously going to get a good amount of rain, still really saturated from Ida as well. There is a danger of life-threatening storm surge, basically still along the coast of Texas from Port Bolivar to Sabine Pass. Residents in these areas should also follow any given advice, obviously by the local officials. So I actually saw a few videos coming in from the east coast of Texas, and there is definitely some pretty dramatic storm surge. Obviously, that does show why it did become a hurricane, or how we could tell it was going to become a hurricane. Obviously, this storm was getting a lot more better looking just before landfall, and obviously brought up to like 5 foot storm surge in some areas. So it was definitely pretty significant across those east central portions there, just north of Corpus Christi. Tropical storm conditions are expected to continue along the Louisiana coast into this afternoon, and then tropical storm conditions in the warning area across upper Texas will diminish this afternoon as Nicholas moves farther to the northeast. However, again, due to his really fast, really slow movement, it's not going to really dramatically change that quickly. So let's now get a look at the overall storm surge. Peak storm surge still expected. Still watching out for an additional 1 to 3 feet all the way from San Luis Pass to intercoastal city there. So still watching out for a possibility of slight storm surge to continue with that strong counterclockwise flow still within the system. So going to really watch out from really Galveston Bay to Sabine Pass all the way to intracoastal, we're really watching out for some very minimal storm surge here with a 1 to 3 feet. As well, really watching out for some extremely significant flooding as well in the next 3 days. We do now have a 50% high associated just for a very specific area, and it's obviously going to be southwestern Louisiana and portion there of eastern Texas. This is very detailed area, obviously centered across areas that got hit by Delta and Laura last year. You can kind of see there's Cameron, Lake Charles, Beaumont, Texas. So watching out for some very significant rainfall area just in the northeast of the actual low pressure, because that's going to be seeing the most intense part of this remaining eye wall, which is obviously diminishing obviously into more of a just large blob of band. And there you see the moderate stretches all the way from Texas to portion of Louisiana, or sorry, Mississippi. And then we have a slight risk going all the way from basically Houston all the way to Pensacola, Panama City, and that general vicinity near Destin as well. So watching out for widespread slight risk. That's going to be more towards really Thursday evening into Friday morning. Right now, concentrate specifically on basically from now on to Wednesday afternoon for Louisiana and Texas. Let's take a look at the overall rainfall totals though. So watching out for maybe expected 6 to 10 inches across these areas. Obviously far east of the low pressure. Obviously these have the higher totals because they have really yet to get any much rain. While these areas over here have obviously gotten a ton of rain so far. So the addition of 4 to 6 will obviously pretty be significant here. And although, again, you can kind of see the areas in the high are a lot lower totals than in the areas in the slight. That's obviously because, like I did say, these areas in the slight have really gone really not much so far. That's going to be more later in the week here. That's why these totals are so high, because they've really got maybe anywhere from 0 to 10% of what they're actually expected to get. So in areas that have gone really just hammered by rain, watching out for an additional, really anywhere from 2 to 6 inches, really watching out for the most intense rainfall near closer to Lake Charles, with some spotted areas across central Louisiana that can get over 6 to 10, and widespread area from basically east central Louisiana all the way up to areas near Pensacola in the far western panhandle of 6 to 10 inches, with a small area 10 to 15 just off the areas of Gulfport and Biloxi, Mississippi. So watching out for some pretty overall significant flooding to watch out for those general areas. So here's now a look at Invest 95L, and obviously it's not looking the best, but there's the actual area of low pressure right there. Seeing a decent amount of overall initiation and convection with those hot, colder cloud tops there, just to the northeast of the actual, or just to the east of the actual low pressure itself, with some more broad kind of cloud cover that's kind of moving slightly to the counterclockwise flow. So it's looking all right now as an invest. I wouldn't definitely become a tropical depression rather soon. However, A-Scat isn't really supporting too much really towards that just yet, but gonna really watch out for the next 24 hours, as obviously the chance has risen from a to a 70, 90, I believe so. So they're watching out. So pretty significant cloud cover going on there, really broad and elongated low pressure with very disorganized overall flow, really no fully counterclockwise flow, because if that were to be the case, this would be a tropical system already, whether it's a tropical depression or a tropical storm. But decent amount of overall broad rotation, so decent amount of inflow. Not really too much outflow necessarily, but it's definitely getting its act together compared to yesterday. Again, we're not really seeing as much convection as we were seeing yesterday as it came off the coast of Africa, because obviously with invests like these and tropical waves like this, they come up with a really intense and blob, just massive blob of convection there as they thrive, and obviously become more of a strong thunderstorm region of low pressure. But as they go deeper into the actual MDR, the pressure or the overall convection tends to kind of fall apart and try to repuzzle itself and rebuild itself. It's like a Jenga. So this is what the latest ASCAT was supporting, and again, it's not looking really the best. You can just overall see how elongated the low is. Basically, right here, you can kind of see some type of westerly trying to develop, some kind of like that, but really just it's not looking the best right now. It's really elongated, obviously very weak, and we're kind of just seeing basically, let's see here, what, maybe 15 knots, yeah, 10 to 15 knots concentrated across that area, with an area right here to the far west of anywhere from 30 knots. Actually, that's 25 knots, sorry, but again, this is kind of the broad area of the elongated low pressure, really just large and really has no much shape, really closed circulation, obviously, as of now. But you can kind of see low pressure is obviously kind of just staying towards really the west of all that main convection right there that we're experiencing within the system. Obviously, this ACE gap pass isn't the oldest, but it's definitely not the latest information. Let's now get a look here at 89 color and see what we have with this. And actually, this is actually not going all the way actually right now, but we can actually look here at the 89 color right. Yeah, this is also not a whole pass right now. It kind of sucks that we don't have a whole pass for this system right now. But yeah, there is no whole pass for that. But you can kind of just get the overall broad idea of how the storm is looking right now. So this is the overall track as of 18Z model runs on Invest 95L. And obviously, like I kind of expected, this is most likely going to go either out to sea or really just pose no threat toward the Caribbean whatsoever. As it gains, obviously, decent amount of strength is going to start kind of turning towards the northwest as that ridge kind of really just kind of really drags it as the steer kind of gets pushed due northward, basically north of the axis. This storm, obviously 95L, will follow in return and kind of go really northwest, almost northwest dramatically, and then start gradually going into a more easterly track, and that's obviously going to allow it to maybe most likely stay and pose no threat whatsoever towards the Caribbean, whether it's the Lesser Antilles or the Greater Antilles. But again, still pretty far out considering it'll still be a good few days before it actually gets to the actual vicinity, and good 4 to 5 days. So still not a good amount of information, but we kind of have a general idea based on the ridging and all of that. That's most likely going to stay away from the Caribbean unless it's dramatically weak, as well with the overall strong ridge. If we had a strong ridge and a rather weak system, it's most likely then pose a threat towards the United States. Not United States, sorry, but the Caribbean. But since it's kind of overall a expected strengthening system with a weaker ridge, it's going to get steered basically towards the northwest, and then obviously eventually the trough will pick it up and take it toward the jet stream away from the United States. So here's the overall look at the ensembles. Obviously, the kind of still seeing a decent amount of members kind of taking it sub 980 millibars. We have a few, maybe 3 or 4 getting below 980 millibars, while the majority of the actual ensembles are getting anywhere from 1,000 to 990 to 990 to 980. So watching God possibly for a chance of a really minimum Category 1 hurricane, but we can't really call that just yet. However, again, there is a decent amount of confidence as the storm kind of goes closer to the Lesser Antilles right here, where kind of we had Gonzalo or Josephine, and that's where it's going to start really getting to act together, allowing it to, again, furthermore turn to the northeast. Here's now a look at the overall intensity guidance. So again, likely to become a tropical storm within the next 36 hours or so. And I would not doubt if it becomes a tropical depression within the next 24 hours, based on its overall development of it trying to become more of a gradually closed low pressure itself. And then, of course, going to then really thrive after the next 3 days or so and become possibility for a strong tropical storm or a rather weak Category 1. But obviously, based on yesterday, the ensembles have really backed off compared to yesterday when they were all kind of up here like they typically are with those 3 to 4 runs, obviously including the H-Warf and as well including the NCIP there, or NCEP. As well, even watching out for the NNIR typically loves to just overreact, and obviously the H-Warf or the H-Warf actually once it gets to Category 3, so it definitely does not shock me. Alright, so let's now get a look at the overall low pressure for Invest 96L. Obviously, Invest 96L is our latest Invest at this point. And this is obviously the one just towards the east of the Bahamas at 50, or actually I believe it's a 60% area of interest at this point, with a 40% for the next 48 hours. So definitely dramatically increasing as well in probability. So a decent amount of blob of overall convection. Looks like it's kind of just slowly moving, kind of just due northward really at this point. You can kind of see an overall area of disturbed weather. Obviously just amount of convection, not really much lightning going on to little at all. So it's just really scattered showers around an area of low pressure, weak area of low pressure, with a pretty big burst of convection just to the east of the actual low pressure itself. There's a low pressure though, as well a good amount of convection to the west. So due to the overall increase in probability and the rapid increase in probability for this area of interest, likely to start seeing 18Z or even 0Z models start to jump on this as not only a tropical depression, but as well, possibility for a tropical storm, as realistic models are starting to really pick this up a little bit quicker than they were just a few days ago. And as well, this ACE gap pass is actually pretty recent, so this is actually pretty valuable information, but like we said, there's really a really broad area of low right now. Just basically, there's really nothing going on here except there is one area of 25 knots to the very, very far east here, but that's not like really saying this is going to be a tropical depression anytime soon. Really supports 20 knots, pressure of 1,014 millibars. So it's not looking the best right now. It's really elongated, really just overall ugly looking. Definitely looks like an invest. So we actually only have two models jumping on this, AVNI and the AEMI. And obviously, all of these are taking it out to sea with the AVNI taking it very just a really sharp turn to the northeast here. As we have that trough kind of picking up and steering it with the upper level shear, keeping it from going anywhere close to the mid-Atlantic or United States. Here's a closer look here at the overall tracks and minimal center of pressure on the ensembles and the overall members, and there's really nothing crazy except a few of them are getting it sub 1,000 once they get closer to Newfoundland and as well even closer to Nova Scotia. Likely to maybe be a tropical depression max. I really don't see anything too crazy with this. However, intensity guidance do want to go pretty crazy, and like we did say, the first advisory typically for invest, they just go crazy, go all out on tropical storm with them getting very close to hurricane. And now you see they did this very similar thing towards actually 95L with the majority getting into a category 1, and then you can kind of see the gradual decrease in the trend there. But most likely not going to get this strong whatsoever. I mean, there is a chance for a very brief and broad tropical storm, but most likely not going to happen. So let's see what the 12Z GFS has to say. Obviously, we're going to not really talk about Nicholas here, as we kind of did overall good information on Nicholas. But there's Invest 95L within the next 42 hours, 1,005 millibars. There is that tropical wave with the overall trough axis right there through the middle of the storm. And there you see Invest 96L, that really broad area of low and a rather higher pressure. And there's really strong ridge steering right here. It's going to be a little bit more of a weaker high right here, and that's obviously going to allow for more steering towards the northwest for this system. Obviously, it's referring towards 95L, and you can kind of see as it stays rather weak, and it kind of just gets steered by the trade winds. It's gonna just go due westward, so it's gonna be rather weak here at 1,007 within next 96 hours. But you can kind of see the GFS here wants to get the 96L. Stay rather into the higher numbers there, 1,013, 1,014, 1,015. But actually, this is lower to 1,009, 1,008, even 1,003. So we may see a chance for maybe a rather brief tropical storm forming just off the coast of the northeast. But as you see, as a potential Odette, sorry, as you see, potential Odette starts to really strengthen again. It's actually getting in the western MDR. You're going to start seeing that gradual northwest return. And that's because there you see the really weak trade winds, obviously, or the really weak trough, kind of right here, a little bit of trough kind of associated right within this area off the southeast. And there you see as well the really weak ridge, allowing for steering to kind of just take it towards the north, further to northwest turn, seeing a really strong high pressure, and that's going to be steering it westward. But that's not going to be the case with this system, so likely going to be out to sea, and really no danger. But GFS is becoming more consistent with the strong out to sea system, making lamp on your Bermuda at 992 millibars. We're gonna really keep a very close eye on this as well. I believe the CMC has been rather consistent with this as well. CMC wants to have obviously 1,008. You actually have the 96L get pretty strong at 991 millibars off the coast of Newfoundland. So we could definitely watch out the possibility for having Peter being pretty far north, as well as CMC kind of has as well. 95 pretty farm, pretty late here. I mean, September 24th is pretty late compared to their models. But overall, actually never mind. That's actually not even. That's not even really what we're really watching out for actually. So the low pressure we're watching out for is obviously the one at 1,011 right there. And the CMC really does not have too much going on with that, but overall, going to keep a very close eye on it. Let's now get a look at the overall steering as well, the 200 millibar shear values. So there is this really strong ridge, keeping obviously Nicholas closer to the Texas coast of the Gulf of Mexico. And there we see an overall strong trough right there, strong ridge, and there's a strong trough. There's the trough right there. And as well, we're going to be seeing really weak steering right now at this point for the area of interest near the Bahamas. That spot's going to have been rather stationary for a while, just staying the same spot over and over the past few days. But they're going to be seeing a little bit more of a better setup with a pretty strong trough kind of dipping there in the United States, as well, forming that really strong ridge, kind of dipping down. We may see a PV streamer right there, but there's the overall system right there, kind of just off the coast of the United States by September 17th, and there you see a strong ridge developing right there with a weaker trough just to the south of the low pressure from 95L, and obviously it's gonna get 96L will get picked up by the trough, the southeast trough, a little bit of a kind of push, and it's gonna kind of steer it basically pretty far off the coast of the United States. So it should not be a big threat. We should not be like seeing a Henry or Henri scenario or anything like that. This is definitely not going to hit the United States based on the steering and the overall model and what they're predicting. And there is here kind of a ridge trying to develop right here within 95L by September 18th. And as you go later on, and you just really see that decent steering here within the high pressure, kind of steering it towards the northwest. But there's a really strong ridge preventing it going from anywhere over here. So obviously as it goes strengthened a little bit furthermore, it's going to continue that northern turn. But then you see that really decent trough kind of really setting up. That's going to keep it from going anywhere. And that's why she's going to kind of really just do this. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys later.